Today, let's talk about deceptive design, why you shouldn't work for the big tech as a designer anymore, and why some people are suffering from what we call as AI Stockholm syndrome. And then at the end, I'm gonna ask you a design question and your answers are gonna be very important for my next video. Because there is this weird trend going on with abstraction in web design and I want to cover it fully, but for that I need your input. Deceptive design is any kind of design that is supposed to deceive the users into doing what they would normally probably not do. You know, I'm not a great fan of a lot of the things they're doing, including the bottle cap thing, but at least in this case, I fully agree. They are cracking down on regulation of big tech, especially TikTok and Instagram, to ban them from using some of those deceptive design practices on their users. Things like auto-loading more content as you're scrolling and auto-playing videos, because it does have a very negative effect on people and basically making people dumber. So as Steve Jobs said that technology is gonna be the bicycles for the mind, well, in this case, it seems like it's a mobility scooter for people who just like to eat a lot. It's making us dumber, more complacent, and a lot less creative. But we're not gonna talk about AI as much today. This is just the regular technology, the regular design part, and somebody designed this. We already talked about it a couple times that when you go to a big company as a designer, you're probably expected to bend some rules and twist your morals and ethics a little bit just to bring their bottom line a little bit higher. This shouldn't be normal. This should be something we point at, this should be something we ridicule, and this should be something we push to be changed. But we might not get a chance for that, because remember when I was telling you that going to work for those big tech companies like Amazon and Meta doesn't make as much sense anymore? Well, tomorrow they're probably gonna be firing 8,000 people. And they're gonna say it's because AI allowed them to be so much more productive right now, but it's not gonna be the truth. Because in reality, most of them aren't really more productive with AI. They're usually burning more tokens than it costs for a person to do the job. What happened was that during the 2023 era, they needed to show investors that the company is growing, but they weren't getting a lot more users because everybody was already using these platforms. So how best to show that as a big corporation we're on a rocket to the moon? Well, let's just say we just hired 10,000 people, and this is exactly what they did. And I talked to some of those people during the work from home era, and what most of them were doing is using mouse jigglers to pretend for the tracking software that they're doing something and then going for a coffee. So a lot of redundant people who weren't really doing anything. Well, now the market reality is kind of catching up to them. It's not because of AI, it's just because those companies mindlessly hired too many people. But that also means that you're way safer working as a freelancer or a solo agency, because that way the only person who can fire you is you. And you really need to be pretty self-hating to do that. I talk about how to do all of that in the Square Black Blueprint, and I just added the strategy chapter and game theory communications for when the clients are ghosting you or not paying. And we only have a couple seats left in this tier before the price goes up again. So go get it now, and then back to the video. Now the thing is that designers usually are outnumbered by developers by around 20 to 1, which means that for these 8,000 people, it's not gonna be a lot of designers that are gonna get fired, but they will have to find a new job. And what they will do, obviously some will start the barista coffee shop business that they always dreamed of, some will become a music critic or whatever, but most of them will want to work in design. The problem is that nobody really wants to hire people from big corps because they expect higher salaries and a lot of the benefits that smaller businesses can't give them. And only the businesses that openly talk about how AI will replace all the jobs are actually hiring a lot of people right now. So most of these people will go to become freelancers and start their little agencies, which means that if you start right now, you're still a couple of months ahead of them. And yes, freelancing and small agencies will thrive because most regular people, even if AI becomes good enough to actually do more of the design work for you, will want to trust somebody to operate that AI. They won't want to do it themselves because the people with no skills who do it themselves usually end up with 0 users and really bad results. So it's a good time to start the freelance business, not a great time to go work for those big companies. And I noticed something pretty weird called the AI Stockholm syndrome. So I find it kind of weird. I wrote a provocative post recently, and there is a lot of people basically attacking me for being anti-AI business, not anti-AI itself, being against anti-AI big businesses. Unless they're all bots, and some of them might be because they had AI or GPT in the name, it just feels unnatural because we as people would probably want to have this awesome technology all to ourselves and not pay some company, higher and higher costs every time because they will be raising prices. So why are you supporting that? Why aren't you supporting cheaper, better, faster local models? No idea. Maybe you can tell me, but I find this extremely weird. It's like a Stockholm syndrome. You're completely bound to your captors, the people you're paying the API costs to, and you don't want anybody to say anything negative about them, and there is plenty negative. Okay, and the final thing for today is that I've noticed, and it's not an AI thing, or maybe 5% AI, I've noticed that basically, if you communicate anything on a website, you have text because this is how we communicate. And usually, to not be boring, next to the text you put some kind of an image. But I noticed that increasingly in the last 5 to 7 years, we're getting more abstract with those images. Like before, they used to somewhat connect to the text, to illustrate it, to emphasize something about it. And this is how it should be. But right now we're getting into like blobs and light leaks and shapes. So can you explain to me why you think that is? Why are we getting just decorative elements? Because of course there is some merit to them in some cases. There is subconscious processing of shapes and their relations. But are we even supposed to go that deep, or are there just lazy people doing lazy things and illustrating pretty bad AI written copy with a pretty generic AI generated image? I really want to know because next week I'm gonna show you what I think about it with a lot of examples, where we're going, and why I think some of these directions are actually hurting sales and revenue. Also, one last thing, we are almost out of the early bird seats for Pitchformance. A/B testing is working in experiments. We're doing pricing testing and a lot of other comparisons. So if you want to join my exciting new venture, just get it in the link in the description, because I think this is something that can counter the onslaught of slop websites that don't bring in any revenue. So just like that, a quick update for today. Obviously, remember to have a beautiful day, and I'm gonna see you next week.